Come over and introduce yourself.
Come forward!
I invite you to think carefully about what you do next.
I am Oz, the great and powerful.
Standing alone before me, surrounded by my heavily armed Securitron guards.
The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
Do you really think I'm going to let an upstart come into my home and ransom my property to me?
You clinking, clanking, clattering collection of colliginous junk!
I spent 2 centuries searching for the platinum chip. It's my invention, my property, mine! Now be a good courier and deliver it!
You billowing bale of bovine fodder!
You needn't be afraid of me. It's my Securitrons that are going to kill you.
Who are you? Who are you?
Engaging target.
Take on the perspective of the courier. Take on the perspective of Dorothy. The beginning is humble, small scale. Here you can afford to make mistakes, but the truth is, this is a microcosm for what the world will truly have to offer you. Here in this small corner of the world, you will learn everything you need to know about the challenges ahead. Certain disaster will strike, and it will change everything and take everything from you. You are a pawn in a game set in motion before you were born, and you will suffer because of your lack of agency. That will change though. You'll get another chance to reclaim yourself. You will know a town that you must save, but also saves you in return. You will set out on a journey to a distant land, leaving the safety of that town behind for a city full of hope and promise, fortune and glory. There will be splits in the road, more choices to make, challenges to overcome, but you will find help along the way. It won't be Prince Charming or someone who appears as a great hero, but rather broken souls such as yourself who have been beaten down by the world. Each companion as you pass appears stuck, but not like a god or a caped crusader, rather as a guiding light. You show them what they already knew to be true, you free them of their clutches, and intertwine your stories and goals. Suddenly the path has changed you, and you prioritize the needs of others and end up losing sight of your original goal for what lies in the roads in between. After many trials and distractions, you'll finally arrive at the gates of the shining city that sat on so many horizons, beckoning you on full of hope and excitement. You and your like-minded crew approach to see the gate guard, not exactly what you'd expect. The gate guard kind of looks like the town guide and a few other fellows around the city, but never mind that. We're here to see the man in charge. But wait. No one has ever seen this man before. No one even knows who he is. The great and powerful leader of the greatest city in all the lands that shines from all angles, and we don't even know who he is. Just a name. Mystery surrounds him. The anticipation builds, and finally there before you is not a man but a marvel, an enigma, a projection of power and superiority, a product of science fiction. You came all this way looking to get something from him. Answers, power, abilities, but he has none of this to offer you. Instead he asks, no, he demands something from you. The great and powerful entity you sought help from instead seeks your help. He maintains his posture though. He does not concede power or leverage. Everything is still in his control, and you act accordingly. He tells you to go to the most feared place in all of the realm, a fort, a great castle surrounded by the most ferocious and loyal of soldiers who bend to their absolute ruler. In this place you must acquire the item he desires, and hopefully in the process you destroy the one who threatens him most. This is where your patience grows thin. You have passed through an army, completed a journey, and shouldered pressure that would tear apart the strongest at their seams, just to play errand boy for a coward that hides behind a curtain. No more games. You want your cut, or things are going to get ugly. But that won't be necessary. The truth is, no Emerald City, no great man in a tower, no yellow brick road or ruby slippers were ever going to give you what you needed. You had to learn it and earn it along the way. All of your friends always had what it took, but it was up to them to discover that about themselves. You certainly knew they were much more than their self-esteem or their lowest point when you met. They were all down in the dumps, just like you. Shot and left for dead, no home in sight, missing parts, they don't believe in themselves, stuck in the past, not living up to who they think they're meant to be. All of them were stuck at the start of this tale, but through the path, they find their way and they find themselves whole again, or like never before. You never needed to be saved by some distant and beyond. All you ever needed was a little purpose, a little reason. Someone to take something from you and make you feel helpless. It didn't matter who they were or what they did, they gave you a reason to push back, to start making choices for yourself. They made you become resourceful and surround yourself with a strong group of people who you could trust in a world full of danger. And after that journey, you return to where it all began. Everything is as it was, but you see things so differently now and appreciate the whole of your experience as a result. Not to mention, it was all just a silly dream. I hope I was able to paint a metaphorical picture that blends the parallels between the narratives of Fallout New Vegas and The Wizard of Oz. Now I will get into a less dramatic but more specific breakdown as to why I think the two stories complement each other so well. I am not arguing that all of these things are intentional. Okay, let's have some fun and compare some specific aspects of the movie and the game. This isn't a perfect one-to-one each time, but I think I can support just about everything with sufficient reasoning. Let me know if you think I am reaching or missing altogether. That's part of the fun. Dorothy is the courier. Let's establish that for now. Dorothy begins on her family farm or ranch. It's a small, simple location with distinct characters being her Auntie Em, Uncle Henry, and then Hunk, Hickory, and Zeke. For those who do not know The Wizard of Oz, these three are the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion in that order that Dorothy meets in Oz/her dream. We also have Elmira Gulch, who wants to kill Dorothy's dog Toto. She is the Wicked Witch of the West in Oz, obviously. Finally, Professor Marvel, who she meets just outside of her family's land, is some sort of traveling snake oil salesman with all of his curiosities and trinkets. He easily excites the imagination of her childish mind. He appears as Oz, as well as a few other roles within the Emerald City, once we're in that part of the movie. From Dorothy's farm, we see her encounter trouble and danger, but her family is there to protect her. The stakes are low, but we don't know that yet because it's all the context we have. Same thing with Goodsprings. This is the game's tutorial level if there was one. Yes, it teaches you how to shoot and crouch, but it also teaches you how to craft, how to handle dialogue, and how the reputation system works. Almost every major system in New Vegas is introduced to you in Goodsprings, just on a small level. You have dialogue skill checks, you can repair Trudy's radio, you have multiple optional quest objectives that will alter your outcome, you can play Caravan with Ringo, but you won't, and most importantly, you have choice. Just like Dorothy's Kansas, Goodsprings is where you learn the rules of the game and get a chance to make a mistake before it really matters. Early on in the movie, Dorothy has her dog taken from her by Elmira Gulch, just like the courier has his possessions taken from him by Benny. Then a devastating tornado hits that comes through in an apocalyptic way. Nothing will be the same after this. Dorothy is knocked out and wakes up in a new world. The courier is shot in the head and left for dead, but he too wakes up in a new world. They each appear in small towns ready to play hero and save the day. Now to be clear, I think Goodsprings acts as both Kansas and Munchkinland. In Munchkinland, Dorothy will emerge from her door into a bright new world, just as the courier does from Doc Mitchell's home. She will kill the Wicked Witch of the East as the courier will slay Joe Cobb. Dorothy will even acquire her ruby slippers that she cannot remove, just like the courier will acquire his Pip-Boy, which he also cannot remove. Both items being the source of power our heroes draw from when in need, they even both allow them to fast travel. One is simply worn on the wrist, while the other is just below the ankle. Glinda the Good Witch of the North asks Dorothy in Munchkinland,
"Are you a good witch or a bad witch?"
Dorothy says,
"I'm not a witch at all."
The moral choices begin, just as the courier is faced with choosing between the town of Goodsprings and the Powder Gangers. If the courier asks for directions out of town, he'll be told to follow the road, just as Dorothy. Follow the yellow brick road. It seems simple and straight at first, but both of them will come to a fork, a split. They must make another choice. They both have heard tales of a great city, and that is where their journey will take them. Both Dorothy and the courier have an immediate impact on the very first place they stumble upon and leave their mark, changing the lives of the people within. and just like in most video games, the Munchkins love Dorothy for killing the right person. They both leave town looking for answers, looking to reclaim what they lost. Dorothy wants Kansas, the courier wants what was taken from him, the platinum chip, the past, as his memory is erased. He is living in a dream, waking up fully grown, having lived a life he can't remember. Near that fork is where they'll meet their first companion, Stuck. Dorothy will meet the Scarecrow, who despite not having a brain tells Dorothy exactly how to get him down from his post. He's down on himself, feels useless without his brain, he's goofy, a bit odd looking and frail. Maybe not your ideal hero, but he's got heart for days. I think each New Vegas companion is interchangeable with Scarecrow, Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, but I have made my one-for-one choice. New Vegas' Scarecrow to me is Raoul. Both of them are trapped, tied to their post to do someone else's bidding. They both feel useless and deeply lack self-esteem, despite showing how capable they truly are throughout the story. Raoul is a skilled repairman, not to mention an excellent shot with a revolver. He's lived many lives and his usefulness and cleverness are apparent. Just like the Scarecrow, he is capable without realizing who he is more than enough. You learn that Raoul isn't just some old man in a repair suit, but rather he's one of the hardest people in all of the wastes. He's lived a brutal life and come out the other side damaged. This is a bit of a stretch, I might be pushing it, but he's also quite close to the first fork in the road in New Vegas, just like the Scarecrow is for Dorothy in the Land of Oz. Dorothy and Scarecrow find a bunch of apple trees and begin picking them, but the trees appear sentient and display their eyes. They are upset their apples were taken and they begin throwing their apples at Dorothy and the Scarecrow, chasing them away. Actions have consequences, just like you would learn in New Vegas during quest choices or when you decide to take things that don't belong to you. Enter the Tin Man. The Tin Man is stuck as well, just like the Scarecrow was, but he's not strapped to a post, he's rusted over and can't move his metal shell. He's rusted from the rain, and now he needs some oil to help get him moving. His problem is that he has no heart, despite appearing incredibly compassionate and crying throughout much of the movie. The New Vegas version of the Tin Man in my mind is without a doubt Boone. When you meet Boone, he's stuck in Novak among his demons and dark past. His wife was sold into slavery, he found her and decided to take her out quickly from a distance to prevent the oncoming torture and life among the Legion, as she was surrounded by legionnaires during an auction. This choice, though we can see the logic, haunts him every day. Boone, as corny as this sounds, is emotionally and mentally rusted over. He is incapable of moving on, just like the Tin Man. And just like the Tin Man, Boone needs a little oil to open up. Many companions in New Vegas join up with you not long after you meet. Boone takes more. Boone wants someone he can trust. He's been wounded too many times. Every time Boone makes a bit of progress, he locks up again and shuts down, just like the Tin Man rusting from his own tears. Both blind to the damage they bring upon themselves, both claim heartlessness despite their moral resolve and wills being incapable of being broken, at your side to the bitter end if that's what it takes. After Dorothy forms her crew with the Scarecrow and Tin Man at her side now, she mentions that she feels she knows them each, familiar but different. I think this is such an excellent parallel Fallout draws upon in our world, familiar but different. You recognize so much once you start to look hard enough. Just as the core line of the series states, war never changes. Context changes, but we find an underlying and undeniable familiarity no matter where we look, both series drawing from alternate worlds. Finally, our last companion arrives, the Cowardly Lion. He puts on a front, tries to play the part of how he looks. After a small engagement, he's slapped in the face by a child and folds immediately. He is a coward and a lion, contradicting by the world's standard. He was born to be feared and respected, but all he truly is lost. The New Vegas Cowardly Lion is Arcade Gannon. Arcade was born by blood as Enclave, once the greatest threat to the wasteland, respected and feared with good reason, but also destroyed with good reason. Arcade was but a child during this. He did not choose life as an Enclave member, and he has no one left to show him how to carry himself as such. He does not know how to be, and he does not know who he is. Arcade hides in plain sight as a follower of the Apocalypse now, the exact opposite of what the Enclave represented. Not only does he not know who he is, but he is afraid of his past, afraid of who he might be. This is the Cowardly Lion, capable yet petrified, like a dream where you're stuck in slow motion. You know what to do, but you just can't pull the trigger. Much like the lion as a member of the animal kingdom is known to be feared and respected, so is Arcade, who knows he was born into one of the most advanced societies in the world with the potential to do immense damage. He is afraid of the path that was given to him whether he likes it or not. Now, there are points where I feel parallels align with different characters at different times, or even multiple characters at once. For example, Mr. House is no doubt the Wizard of Oz. I'm sure you saw that coming. However, here I will compare House and Caesar to the Wicked Witch of the West. She watches Dorothy and her crew through a crystal ball, Mr. House watches the courier and his crew through Victor and other Securitrons, and Caesar watches them through his vast network of spies. All of them fill the role of the schemers here, who plot and plan, keeping a meticulous eye on things because the idea of not getting their way, the idea of losing control, melts them inside and out. Furthermore, if the courier is to follow the game's natural path, these companions can line up in order just as the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion appear. Raoul is obviously out of the way as I stated, but if the courier is to test the quote-unquote wrong path, they might stumble into Raoul near the split in the road at Black Mountain, just to be turned around back towards Prim. Bit of a stretch for sure, but also Raoul is too powerful to give to the player early game that easily, so it's understandable. Boone can be met just about halfway to Vegas when you enter Novak, much like the Tin Man is met about halfway to the Emerald City, and then Arcade, much like the Lion, is just before the gates of that city in the concrete jungle of Freeside. With the whole gang gathered in each instance, we finally enter the grand destination, the New Vegas Strip or the Emerald City. Dorothy and company approach their goal and reach the gates of Emerald City closed, and they are met with a gate guard who they must convince to let them in. We will eventually realize that the gate guard is the same man as Oz. Similarly, in New Vegas, the courier and crew are blocked off by a closed gate, reinforcing the exclusivity of the location. Oddly enough, the gate guards are mere extensions of Mr. House, each of which he can access and see what that individual Securitron sees. They are described as his eyes and ears. Oz is his own gate guard, and so is House. It's delivered a bit differently, but the parallel is striking, especially considering it is barely the most obvious parallel between the two characters. Furthering the subtlety, there is a horse carriage driver / town guide sort of character in the Emerald City who greets and guides Dorothy and the others, who is also the same actor as Oz, along with playing a guard. Victor is your guide around town, who again is just another extension of Mr. House. Oz is his own gatekeeper, town guide, and security. Mr. House is his own gatekeeper, town guide, and security, but the similarities don't end there, of course. When the gang meets the great and powerful Wizard of Oz, he is a massive projection, and a giant floating head emitting power and authority. He tells them they must go and fetch the Wicked Witch of the West's broom, demands it really. This great enemy who has been plotting and pursuing them, finally they get to their savior, and he in turn sends them right back into the lion's den, the greatest threat to their existence, the very person who tried to stop them from getting here in the first place, and Oz the great and powerful has nothing to offer, but much to request. Sound familiar? When you meet Mr. House, he's a massive head, a projection. With his digital smoke and mirrors, he towers over you. You brought yourself all this way on a revenge tour, dragged Benny up to his suite to get some answers, but it was barely half the plot. Now you approach Mr. House with the platinum chip. Maybe you're thinking, oh, but this time the courier has the broom. The platinum chip is the broom, but it's not. You see, when Oz asked for the witch's broom, he wasn't asking for the witch's broom, he was asking for her head. He wanted safety, and he chose a child and her motley crew of misfits to act as cannon fodder. Maybe they'll succeed, but the likely result is their death. If they die, then he won't have to provide that girl with a way home, the Scarecrow with a brain, the Tin Man with a heart, or even the set of balls for the Lion. Mr. House knows you have the chip. He knows you have the power. He doesn't care. He refuses to be undermined and blackmailed. He'll barely give more than 1,000 caps to even the most charismatic couriers, barely a sum worth considering compared to the value of the chip, let alone the value of the work it took to get it here, bullet in the head and all. And after you act like a good little dog to the powerful figure, unsure if he's even man at all, where does he send you? The fort, the Legion's home. Just like Oz sends Dorothy to the witch's castle, both locations surrounded by their Crimson Guard. Of course, New Vegas is full of choice, but many players at this point will be walking into their enemy's home base. The Legion is posed as a looming invader threat to the Mojave who will greatly alter the way of life, taking many lives in the process. You may like them, you may side with them, but their narrative parallel here is clear. The witch watches our heroes through her magic ball, while Caesar watches them through his vast spy network. She sends attacks meant to slow down or destroy our protagonists, just as Caesar sends his waves of legion if you upset him. Mr. House wants you to enable his Securitron army stationed under the fort. He needs you. He needs you to get the chip. He needs you to manage relationships with other factions. He needs you to activate the robots. He needs you to do the legwork. He needs you to stop the Legion from destroying everything he has worked for, including himself. Without the courier's intervention, House knows the likelihood that his utopia in the wastes, his illusions of power and importance, will fall through his old decrepit fingers like soft, fine grains of beach sand if the courier does not enable his Securitrons and help him stop the Legion, or the NCR, or even the Brotherhood of Steel for that matter. He's gathered attention, and a lot of factions are vying for what he has. He's desperate to cling on. He is anything but in control of his great city. He's running around fixing leaking pipes and patching holes in the walls with no hands. He needs the courier. Beyond that, once Dorothy accidentally slays the Wicked Witch of the West by trying to put out the fire-burning scarecrow, the witch melts. Hilariously, might I add.
Oh, what a world, what a world.
And her army stands down, rejoices even, as they were slaves to her bidding. And what do people so often say of Caesar and his legion? That once he dies, the whole thing will fall apart at the seams. His army of slaves just might combust due to the power vacuum he leaves in his wake and their lack of identity now given they were Caesar's legion. Once Dorothy and the crew return back to Oz, they are changed. They've become hardened in their journey. They're not so ready to fold to Oz's tricks and illusions the second time they meet. Eventually, Toto reveals the mere mortal man behind the curtain, and the wizard becomes magician with his trick revealed. He's no wizard, no god, he's not even scary looking or particularly handsome. He's just a man, an average middle-aged man. His mystique has been ripped away and replaced with a pathetic sense of exposure, which he quickly tries to reclaim by offering each of the members of the group what they already had, but just did not know yet. Scarecrow through the movie displays his intelligence regularly and is often even the leader in the darkest of moments. His quick thinking is the only reason they're still here. Tin Man has been compassionate and emotionally involved from very early on. He put others' desires well ahead of his and risked his life to save Dorothy. If he doesn't have a heart, he doesn't need one for the reasons he thinks. The lion is often frozen by his fears, it's true, but he stuck it out the whole way and persisted, sometimes with the help of his friends. It sounds cliche, but the message here is, it's not courage that gets you through what you're already confident in, it's courage that pushes you through the unknown and allows you to act when you are afraid. The lion started tackling his problems with courage the second he set out on his journey with Dorothy. That's not to say that their journeys were for nothing, but rather that they had much of what they needed or wanted. They just needed to go and live and sharpen those tools. Gain some perspective. By the time we are done and the witch is defeated, everyone has pushed themselves beyond their fears and overcome so much that they have no choice but to be overwhelmed by confidence. Similarly, the courier may come to a point where they see House for who he is. Perhaps they fought and defeated the Legion at the fort with a few companions at their side. Now they know who the real Kingmaker is. It's the doer. They removed one faction, how about another? And just like Oz sits behind a curtain, House sits behind one as well. His is made of concrete and a dash of elevator, but the idea is all the same. And once revealed for his true figure, goodness what a fright it is. House has preserved himself in a chamber of damned technology that defies human biology. But again, he is just a man. He is so old, merely existing and being present in this form seems to be taxing. Some people are so old they begin to struggle to walk or talk or even think. Mr. House seems so old it's hard to just be. Like the universe hates that he still draws breath as he defies nature, greedy, pathetic, clinging on, and bitter as the world, truly his own hubris, has brought the end of his empire to his doorstep. The courier removes the curtain and exposes Mr. House, the great and powerful. Finally, Dorothy has to finalize her character arc. She must realize that she's been able to go home this whole time. This journey she's undertaken has come to a close. It's time to begin another. The underlying theme is that she has been able to gain agency in her life. She left Kansas angry and afraid, but also ungrateful. She wanted something bigger, something better, and she had a good reason to want change. Her family didn't even have the ability to stop her dog from being taken and killed. After challenging herself and facing fears, she returns home with a newfound appreciation for what she had and who she is. Her family members resembling her friends in Oz is done with purpose, just as Almira Gulch appearing as the witch in Oz was purposeful. She is pushed to the limits and overcomes many obstacles she might have thought were far beyond her when she first began in Kansas. Now after all of that, she returns home and realizes how capable she is of making choices and taking action. What is that if not the perfect parallel for a character in a video game entirely designed to carry us through a series of challenges and choices? We begin with the small choices in Goodsprings, and with each new engagement the stakes continue to rise. And just like Dorothy's choices in the Land of Oz shaped her return to Kansas, the courier's choices will shape the results of the game. And just like each of Dorothy's companions went through their own story arcs and changed, so will the companions of New Vegas if they take the journey. Fallout New Vegas, intentionally or unintentionally, parallels The Wizard of Oz, a grand odyssey of self-discovery and change where nearly as much focus is placed on the world and the side characters as is on the main character, Dorothy or the courier. Okay, so I've saved this last bit as a bit of an acknowledgements and context portion to the video. If you've gotten what you've wanted out of the video, the Wizard of Oz portion is pretty much done. I'm just going to have some commentary on some things that are, less related to the main topic of the video. So I don't know exactly what is and what isn't intentionally connected between The Wizard of Oz and New Vegas. I know the Old World Blues has connections as well, and maybe we can do a separate video discussing that. I just know that there's thematic overlap that's compelling and interesting to me within the base game. Fallout, within the well-written portions of it at least, draws heavily from other stories, whether it be book or film, so I do not doubt that on some level, The Wizard of Oz has had an influence on New Vegas. A while back, I thought there existed a YouTube video that discussed the parallels between Fallout New Vegas and The Wizard of Oz, so this certainly isn't my unique idea. I know there is a video that compares Fallout 4 to The Wizard of Oz, but that game just does not do it for me on a narrative level, and I think it largely tried to mimic New Vegas in some of its design, which led to them making similar references or parallels. Consider how Fallout 3 had no faction system that intertwined into the main story, nor did Oblivion or Skyrim, then New Vegas does it, and then Fallout 4 follows suit. New Vegas has companions care about how you act and who you align with, and they all have fleshed out narratives that offer character development in spades. No BGS game really does this, then Fallout 4 all of a sudden does it. New Vegas has a glowing city in the distance from many areas around the map. No BGS game really does this, then all of a sudden Fallout 4 has Diamond City and the glowing sea brightened up for all to see. New Vegas and its DLC Old World Blues make direct references to The Wizard of Oz long before Fallout 4 even started development, and in my opinion the New Vegas parallels are subtle and hit the mark very well. Despite New Vegas coming out before Fallout 4, my video on New Vegas and The Wizard of Oz is coming out well after the first video on Fallout 4 and The Wizard of Oz. Go check out that video, just do a quick YouTube search, Fallout 4 Wizard of Oz, and you'll find it. There's plenty of good connections between the two, and he makes a lot of really good points. I just don't think Fallout 4 has the narrative strength to do much with that parallel. By the way, I like Fallout 4, so don't try and sign me up to your Fallout 4 hate Discord or aim your anti-New Vegas guns at me. I don't care. I like both games, but if you think Fallout 4's narrative is more compelling than New Vegas's, I'd like to borrow the extra chromosome you're carrying. I'm kidding, relax. While these two worlds may seem vastly different, the connections are undeniable. Fallout New Vegas echoes the timeless narrative of The Wizard of Oz, showing that no matter how bleak or twisted the world may seem, we always have the power to create our own path. Okay, that's all the corn I have for you today. You can get on out of here now. Go watch The Wizard of Oz, it's actually a really good movie.
world.